Okay. I hope you got that.
Okay. So here we are, the long-awaited our 3-inch artillery shell video. So, I'm gonna try to make this as quick as I can. We're gonna assemble a shell here. Pretty much we're gonna need one of everything. So the first thing is, I use plastic shells. I like them more. I think they make a bigger star. So for our bottom hemispheres, take a 1/4-inch drill bit and drill out your bottom hole here. The reason we do that is because we need our time fuse to fit right in there. This is going to be using hot glue, so we are going to be on a hell of a timer. Next, take your top hemispheres, which this is an outie, bottom hemisphere is an innie, and we're going to take a 1/16 inch drill bit and poke a hole in the top of it. That's going to be our air vent for when we're sealing these. It will get resealed later. So now, we've got our drill bits drilled. The first thing we have to do is build the fuses. So, we're going to take our time fuse and taking the length of time fuse that you've already tested, you cross-matched it, you timed it, and you know how many seconds per inch your time fuse is, we're going to measure a 1/2 inch, a 3-second delay, and another 1/2 inch. So I find it's easier to do this while it's still on the fuse. Get your box knife with a nice sharp blade. Just work it back and forth right through the middle of your time fuse. You got to be careful because you don't want to slip until you're down to your mark. Once you get there, I wobble it back and forth a little bit. That helps open it up. So we've got a nice split there for our cross matching. So now we are going to take 6 inches of our black match. I'm going to use my homemade in this case. And you want to kind of do a 5-to-1 ratio. So we've got 5 inches of black match on this side, 1 inch of black match on this side. Don't look too closely at those measurements. It's close enough. So you need sandwich baggies with the fold type top, not the zipper top. And what we're going to do with this is we're just going to poke a hole in the bottom corner of it. Take our piece of black match and we're going to poke it on through there. Make sure not to lose your hole because that does make life a little bit difficult. Finding the hole is half the challenge. After that, you're good. And just go ahead and poke it all the way. Pull the bag over it so that now our black match is inside the bag. We've got it separated. The light kind of reflects off of the plastic. It's kind of hard to show. So now we take this, make sure it can fit inside of our shell here, and we're going to use hot glue. So this is where you want to minimize risk. We're going to keep the cheap hot glue guns have a bad tendency to spark. This is a construction grade one. It's pretty nice. You don't want to cheap out on this, and you want to keep this away from anything flammable. So, as much as possible. We're going to put a nice bead of glue right here on the center. And there's not really a such thing as being too generous with this. I've got marked out where 3/4 of an inch is, so I want 3/4 of an inch of my fuse sticking through. Once I hit that, I'm going to twist it a little bit so that I'm sure I'm spreading my glue around to seal it up a little bit. There's always a good chance to check. Right at 3/4 of an inch. So that's our inside sealed. Now here on the outside, what we want to do is we're going to use a lot more hot glue. Put a bead around where our fuse meets the shell, because we want to seal that up real good. And then we want to put another bead here at the base of that. Now that we've got all of our glue out, take one of our fuse washers, stick that down over there into the glue, twist it to make good contact. And now is a pretty good time to add a little bit more around here. Essentially, these layers upon layers of hot glue are going to be what seals our what seals up the fire of the lift charge from getting inside the shell too early. So now we've got that. Now, while that's drying, it actually helps a little bit to take an empty Dixie cup, which is what we're going to use, and set it in there, because that'll help, stop you from touching the hot fuse. Poke this down in there as much as we can. And in this step, it is easier to kind of fold over the extra. This will help you poke it down in there. So now get your stars of choice. For this one, we're going to be using my first time batch, the D1 glitter stars, which are a mix of ferro-titanium and aluminum in this case. So we need about a quarter cup should fill this. I'm just gonna do till the hemisphere is full. So now that it is right at about half full, I'm gonna poke my black match back around here so it's kind of in the center. We've got 1.25 ounces of brake charge. This is what's gonna split it apart, so we want it to be good and strong. And you want to put about half of it, give or take. Helps to shake it a little, get it to mix in the stars. So now what we're gonna do, we're going to bring this back up so that we actually have a bag. We're going to add our other quarter cup, or another quarter cup, I should say. Yeah, that's fine. That's not. So that's all of our stars in there. Add the rest of the burst charge. So we've got a full ounce and a quarter black powder in there. Mix it up a little bit. It's easier to just shake it to get it to mix. So now, get your extra bag. Kinda here at the top, you're gonna have to use your finger to stop the bag from twisting, because there's nothing holding it to your fuse. But the tighter you get this, the better, the more round it's gonna be, which is what we're going for. Take some scissors, a knife, dealer's choice. Cut off your extra. Yeet. This is part of why we use the bag. Everything's still good. We didn't lose anything. Now I'm going to bet there's actually a little bit too much. These stars are a little bit bigger and less consistent than my rubber stars are. So in this case, it's going to be a little less than a quarter cup. Bad example, I know. I'm a horrible teacher, but you know. Did anybody come here for the production value? Pack that back down in there. Twisty it back up into a kind of dome. And then fold this over and hold it. Take one of your vents, so your top half, and see if you can get it on there. If it's too much and you don't have enough room, take some of the stars out. Again, This is kind of the test batch with these. They're my press stars. So this is a first for me. If you're using rubber stars, then the numbers do work a lot better. I'm just also really, really bad at math. See if we can get that on there. Not quite, maybe one or two more. So you just kind of work your way around, poke it in the shell as you go, figure out what's stopping it from closing and fix that. So you can see here, we can actually wrap it up, close it perfectly into a sphere. So that is our practice run. We're gonna take it apart. This is my Audi, so this is the male side, and take you some PVC cement. So again, in the name of production value, this is where I realized that my PVC cement has actually dried in the can, and is therefore not going to be very useful for fireworks. So I'm going to cut the video here, run down to Home Depot, and get new PVC cement. You don't need primer, you only need the cement because this is soft plastic. In other news, I did actually find high strength, which is made for larger diameter pipes, and so I ended up getting that in the hopes that it's actually going to work a little bit better, and hopefully we'll get a bigger break. Yeah, you can see here where it has completely dried in the can and is not going to be useful. Still smells great though. So I'm gonna cut out of here and run down to the store. Okay, welcome back. For y'all, it is the next day. For y'all, it's been 5 seconds. For me, it's the next day. So I've actually got some heavy-duty PVC cement, which I wonder if that'll work any better. It just says it's made for larger diameter pipes, which makes me think this stuff will actually be a little stronger. And the stronger we can make this, the bigger or the more impressive it'll look. Because if it can't break the seal, then we're good. Now, I did realize yesterday that I am a little dumb. The fuse inside the shell is supposed to be 3 inches each, so 6 inches total, and for whatever reason I drew a blank on that. So we're gonna run with it. It should be fine. Glue on the bottom is dried. So again, wrap this up nice and tight. Make sure it's fully seated in the shell. Tuck in anywhere where it's kind of pinching. I use the back of my spoon a lot for this. Okay, we can shut it all the way, so we're ready for our cement. So we crack it back open. Get out our brand new thing of PVC cement. Good holy God. I found a small monkey wrench. The small monkey wrench worked pretty well. So wipe our extra off. We can hold this by the vent down here and just get a good smear of that all the way around the outside. Is there such thing as excessive? Probably. So this is where we want to twisty this back up and hold it flat. Try not to touch your glue joint. And then same thing, we're going to try to get that plastic back in here. It has loosened a little bit, so you just poke it on down in there. Very small amounts of force, shouldn't take a whole lot. And then twist it. That makes sure we're getting good contact. And this, you can already see where it's trying to push up through here, that little ridge that's forming. That's where the glue is actually melting our plastic and fusing them together. So because I am paranoid, and this is a good chance to stop misfires, I'm gonna wipe another thin layer all the way around that joint. And that is going to help seal us up a little bit. So now's a good time. Set this down for a second. Get out a strip of masking tape. Honestly, doesn't have to be this thick. If I was using the thicker rolls, then I would actually tear it in half. This is just thin enough. I really don't want to tear it in half. But now we're gonna go all the way around our diameter with it. Oop, I touched the glue. Don't worry about overlapping a whole lot. But now you can just spread it out. So our glue is going to be our clamp. It's gonna hold it in place until it dries. Because even though it's already tacky and melted, it's not gonna hold it on. It won't hold it on until it's cured, which takes like 2 hours. So now we've got our fuse plug, and now we've got our equator full of stars and powder. And if you shake this, you can hear the powder, but there's no rattling around. Because if it was rattling, that would mean we don't have enough stars in it. If you didn't seal it, it means there's too many. That's why we drill the vent hole here, is when we're pushing the two halves together, then that vent hole lets the air out. So now's a good time. Take your fuse hook here, get a nice big dab of glue on there, and we're going to shove it right there where it goes. Twist it in there to make sure we got good contact. That is going to be what supports our shell when we're loading it in the tube. That also blocks our vent hole so fire can't get in there. So there's those. So now we could put this to our lifting charge and be done, but I want this to be stronger. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this strapping tape, reinforced strength. It's boxing tape with the little strands of fiberglass in it. So I generally tape this to the edge of my counter, and we're gonna wanna be in about 3 even strips. So I'll attempt to put this where anybody can see it. But right here, we want about 3 even strips. You can measure if you really want to. But once you're in between these little pieces of fiberglass, it just tears down that piece of fiberglass. So the strapping tape works. We've got about 3 equal pieces. Because the fiberglass has very poor shear strength, and it's just tape. But the fiberglass has really, really good tensile strength, meaning that it's going to, when it explodes, it's going to try to blow it apart and push it outwards, and it's very resistant to that. So this is actually going to make our shells even stronger. So we're going to do 3 complete wraps around the equator like this. I think that's good. In order to cut this crosswise, you will need something sharp. Got to cut all the strands or it won't go. So roll that, press it in there really good. Because now, when it tries to explode, it's going to try to go outwards, and this is going to stop it. So now for our second wrap, we're going to go to the inside of the fuse, or to the shell leader. It's going to hold a fuse, so, that's why the Freudian slip there. And then just on the other side of our time fuse, and back around to meet it, and we're going to do that 3 times. So I do these in continuous strips that are way longer than I actually need. Okay, that is the top piece. So we've done that once. 1.5. 2. 2.5. 3, cut it there. And if you can, stagger your starts and stops, because those are going to be weaknesses. By staggering them, we're going to reduce that weakness. And it may not, if you want to, you can actually wait to put your rubber cement on the fuse. You can wait on that until after you've done this step, so that there's no risk of you getting it on your hands. I actually use the little loop kind of as a marker for where I am, so that's why I do it first. Okay, go get another piece. That, I believe, is 3. And then this little gap here, we're going to go ahead and fill that in too. So all the way around the world, there's once, 1.5, 2, 2.5. And for the sake of the video, I'm going to leave it there because I'd have to cut another piece of tape. Now, that almost worked out perfectly. I don't really measure how long the piece of tape is. I just go for about a thumb wide whenever I'm doing this. So that's how I know I get 3 equal pieces. And I do about an arm's length of tape every time I separate it. So make sure all your tape's pressed on there. So any way this tries to break, this is going to help stop it because those fiberglass strands are really, really strong. Now we need to cross match this, so I've got my mark on where to cut. And we put this off to this step, that way it's easier to stab through the shell. If we cross matched this before we stabbed it through our shell casing here, then it may not want to go, which would be rather inconvenient. So we've got that opened up. 2 1-inch pieces of quick fuse, or black match I should say, stuffed all the way down to the bottom. And now we need another piece of, I use sewing thread. Maybe I'm basic. Sewing thread works. So I put a little loop in it, loop again, kind of pull some slack into it so I can get it off my finger. So now loop that over my time fuse. Pull it tight. And now it'll hold itself so I can tie a little knot in it. Probably for the best you can't see my sewing thread because I do not have what they call those fine motor skills. So I mean, obviously the danger here is that everything we are working with is flammable. From the fuses that light really, really easily to the rubber cement, which the fumes are very strong and flammable, to the stars themselves, which are very flammable, to the several ounces of black powder we have, which are, again, flammable. Who'd have thought, right? So it's a good idea to do this outside, in a vented area, have a fire extinguisher nearby. All of the clothes you're wearing need to be made out of cotton so that they don't melt. So if you're a neat freak, you could trim up that string, make it look pretty. But this is a fully assembled shell. If you wanted to put this shell on a rocket, you would use a piece of black match going through here, and then you could glue it down onto the rocket. I may actually do one, but it'll probably be a separate video just because I don't have any rocket fuel left. So I'm not going to be able to do it with a rocket. So now, you take your cup, and for the sake of speed, I'm going to be using some factory fast fuse. Just knock everything around a little bit, it's fine. So our mortar's about 20 inches long, so I need about 24 inches of fuse. Or no, it's shorter than that actually. Our mortar is like 16 inches long, so you need 20. My fuse is almost 40 inches, so I'm just going to cut it at about the halfway point, which is going to be about 19 inches. That way I can get 2 shells per fuse. So this is my fancy fuse. We're going to split the end of it a little bit, expose that black match in there. Because really the paper coating is just a protective shell to stop it, make it a little resistant to burning. That way it can't accidentally burn on you. What an idea, right? This is a fancier kind of fuse, so hopefully it'll look pretty. So in the sake of being the lazy person that I am, gonna get a piece of black match. I am going to tie it in a knot around the end of this. It's a little crumbly, it doesn't want to really form a good knot. Pull her tight-ish. So now I've got a little piece of black match on the end of my fancy fuse here. We're going to stick that down in the bottom of a Dixie cup. Take a little piece of your scrap tape, it doesn't have to be huge, but I'm going to put that about in the middle, and then I'm going to tape this to the edge. So now we've got a piece of tape holding in our black match down the bottom. I have 1 ounce of my gunpowder I'm going to use as a lift charge. Throw that in there to cover up my... And the last cup is the next charge. So there's that. Take our hot glue gun, which is hot again, hopefully. There it is. And just put a nice thick bead of hot glue all the way around the edge of this. You understand, hopefully, why we need to be using a quality glue gun now, not some cheap shit. And remember, go around the outside of your fuse, go around the inside of your fuse. We need to seal it. So now we're gonna take our shell. That's hot. Drip hot glue on ourselves because high production quality. Stab it down in there, twist it a little. I am paranoid. I'm gonna make another bead of hot glue around this, where these two meet. And that way, if there's any deficiencies in my glue, if there's any gaps or anything, this is gonna seal them up. So that is now fully sealed. I love hot glue, I really do. That burned. Don't be afraid to wear gloves. That hurt a lot. Okay, so now that we're done being Weenie Hut Juniors over here, so our tape or our glue joint is fairly well sealed. It's cooled a little bit so we can smear it. Make sure there are no gaps because we don't want any sparks getting down into our lifting charge. We don't want this going off accidentally. We don't want this cup coming off here. We don't want to spill black powder, none of that. Take your fuse, run it up here through your leader because that's what's going to hold it as we drop it in. So now this stuff, as soon as you light this, it's already at the end. You cannot outrun it. Believe me, I've tried. You make that mistake exactly one time. So, our time delay to get out of it is going to be with Visco fuse. Cannon fuse, safety fuse, whatever you want to call it. So I do about a hand long is plenty. Cut that. Now I'm going to take this and split the end of it to expose the black match. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our cannon fuse here and our exposed black match, overlap them at least an inch, you could do more. I'm going to do the width of a piece of my tape. That is the standard to which I'm doing. And we want to cover the end of this because that is the most sensitive part here, is the end of our fast fuse. So by taping this with our Visco, we're making it harder to light the fast fuse. We're protecting it so no stray spark can set it off. And now we have a delay to get out of the way. Because remember, misfires do happen, and we need to assume it's going to happen every time. So now that that's on there, this will take, it's like 5 seconds-ish. It's like a second per inch, so about 5-6 inches. And then once it gets to this, it'll go all the way in less than a second. So now, for an extra layer of assurance, to make sure that this cannot burn accidentally, I'm going to actually pull this back on through here, take a piece of masking tape to about how long it is, split it again. I hate this masking tape. That would be why. Absolutely hate this masking tape. I prefer my blue brand. It doesn't randomly tear on me like that. I'm probably going to cut this because no one wants to listen to me bitch about firework. No one wants to listen to me bitch about tape, actually. So we need to get a piece of masking tape about as long as our fuse. Gonna go a little bit longer here, so I got some extra in case there's a mistake. So I'm gonna start right above my tape joint here. And then I'm gonna line that edge up with the rest of my fuse the entire way. Just giving it like 1/8 of an inch. There it goes. It's fine, be that way. So once we've got that on there, we're just gonna wrap it up. Not, you know, the tighter it is, the prettier it looks. I'm just gonna do this, some quick and dirty. Twisting it around my fast fuse. So this is going to make it actually harder to light because any spark that bounces off will have to burn through the tape and then get to the fast fuse, which some errant spark falling from the sky is not going to do. Unless you have really screwed up somewhere. But it shouldn't be able to. So this adds a layer of fireproofing so that our shell does not accidentally go off, because that would be a really, really bad time. Tape it right there to the side of the shell. Run the fuse back up through here, which will be our support. And then I like to wrap it through here a time or two, just to keep my fuse out of the way and looking pretty for storage. That way it's ready to go whenever I want to fire it. So this would be a complete shell, ready to fire. Everything should burn up. Shouldn't leave any mess. Now, take your Sharpie and somewhere on it, write what is inside the shell, because you will not remember. So these are my D1 glitter. So I've got it labeled so I know what's in it. And that is a finished artillery shell. In my infinite wisdom, I actually forgot to record this part. So if you want to use the rising tails we've already made, you just take the not primed side of it, and then you put a ring of hot glue around it, and then just stick it onto your shell. And that is how you make the rising tail effect. I like to make it so my fuse touches it, the lift charge should light it.